Good morning to people in America, or good afternoon to everybody in the UK, and welcome to a Premier League preview on the Big D podcast. Before I bring in today's special guest, please subscribe, like, and share the Spunky Spectrum Sports YouTube page. I said we would have a lot of content coming out this week, and by golly, we do. So please check it out, and hope to share some more exciting information in the coming days. So, if you remember back to the Open where this next guest did a great job, well, he's also not just a golf guru, but a Premier League guru. So joining us from the UK today is my buddy Tom Jacobs. Tom, can you believe the new Premier League season is only 70 some odd hours away?
It's pretty strange. It's the real football started last week. If you remember rightly, I sort of told you that I was a Nottingham Forest fan, and that ended in disappointment. In our first championship game, we lost to Coventry in the 96th minute. So just like we always do, we seem to disappoint. But yeah, excited for the Premier League to be back. I think there's going to be some big changes, probably even between this video and the weekend, and a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, speaking of changes, I'm not sure there'll be a bigger change than Lionel Messi leaving Barcelona for Paris Saint-Germain. I never thought Messi would leave Barcelona for anywhere, but when you first heard the news of Messi leaving Barcelona, what were your thoughts?
Well, if you think back to earlier in January, when his contract was going to be up anyway, they kind of talked about him leaving, didn't they? And it was Manchester City were linked because of Pep Guardiola. Going back to Argentina, to play with his old boys, his old club. There was a lot of talk there, but this has basically happened, hasn't it? Because Barcelona are in complete financial ruin. When you just got to look at the extortionate wages they've been spending on people to realise why it's happened. I think Antoine Griezmann's on £500,000. There's so many bad errors that they've made. They're trying to force players out. Samuel Umtiti got booed the other day in a friendly because he refused to take a pay cut to allow Messi to stay. At the end of the day, it's this Barcelona's doing, and they've now had to let a club legend, or the biggest legend in football probably, walk out the door. It will be strange. It will be really strange. We spoke earlier in the week, and you sort of said it would be, really strange to see him in the Paris Saint-Germain shirt, and it will. It feels underwhelming. I've got to be honest. I think that it was quite sad when Neymar went to the French league, and I think it's going to be pretty disappointing that Messi's there as well. We'll still see him in the Champions League, but I don't think it gets much focus on the French league, and there's not much competition there either.
Yeah, and also look at how much Barcelona spent on guys. I mean, how much did they pay Dembele, Griezmann, and don't forget Philippe Coutinho?
That was one of the worst transfers in a long time, wasn't it, Philippe Coutinho? If you remember back to
2018.
Yeah, and you remember back to the Champions League game against Bayern Munich where he went on loan and he came on and scored 2 goals. And I think they lost 7-1 or something like that, wasn't it? So, it's not worked well for them. It's quite sad, actually. We're used to, Barcelona's synonymous with great play, great players. And Barcelona and Real Madrid have not really been the same teams over the last couple of seasons. Ronaldo's left Real Madrid. Messi's now left Barcelona. Suddenly the La Liga's not as an exciting prospect as it once was. So pretty sad that he didn't come over to the Premier League, Messi, to join up with Manchester City. I think that would have been a good move for him. But that's the way it's worked.
Oh gosh, just what City needed. Another playmaker. What are they going to have? Like 10 playmakers on the pitch?
Yeah, they might struggle now. They've only got Kevin De Bruyne, Phil Foden, Jack Grealish, Raheem Sterling, Bernardo Silva. They'll struggle, won't they, this year?
And Ederson in goal.
Yeah, and the guy pinging it from 50 yards every time. It's frightening. I'm sure we'll come on to them later, but yeah, they look good.
Now back to the Premier League, and as you want to say, I think we should talk about everybody's transfer business, and I can't think of a bigger signing so far than Manchester City getting Jack Grealish. I mean, we all saw hopefully some of us saw what Grealish did for Villa the past few years, and yeah, true, he didn't really play that much for England at the Euros, but we know what Jack Grealish can do from a playmaking standpoint. And who's been the most fouled Premier League player the last, what, 3 years?
Yeah, he doesn't wear very big shin pads either, does he? So he gets a few boots to the shins and gets brought down an awful lot. But really exciting move for him. Yeah, I think you could see from his interviews he was actually quite upset to leave. You know, it's the only thing he's ever known. He's been there 19 years, but I think eventually you have to make the move. Um, but coming on to Aston Villa, I think they've actually prepared really, really well for his exit. I think they've kind of, I don't know if you saw the interview with the CEO of Aston Villa, but he kind of talked about the fact that Jack Grealish signed a contract last year on the proviso that if a Champions League club came in next summer that he could move. And they set the fee at 100 million. And they obviously got the inkling that was going to happen before the Euros and have spent the money pretty wisely, it seems, on paper anyway.
Yeah, in many ways, Villa almost knew Grealish was gone, and they spent a boatload of money. They got Bailey from Bayern
Yeah.
Leverkusen. I love what Villa's done in the transfer market, and sort of maybe not build around Grealish, but like build in like 4 or 5 different areas, and maybe have a deeper team and not just one relying on Grealish.
And that's what they said. They said they need, instead of trying to replace him directly with one person and put it all on that one guy's shoulders, they're just replacing his contribution with 3 or 4 different players. They've signed Emiliano Buendia from Norwich, who's a really, really exciting midfielder and a winger and creates a lot of chances. Leon Bailey, as you mentioned, exactly the same as well. And Danny Ings there from Southampton. You know, we saw Danny Ings. He made a big move to Liverpool, didn't he, earlier on in his career, and it didn't quite work out. I think a lot of that was injury related. He's been very, very good since he's been at Southampton, and I expect him to do well for Villa. I think, you know, Villa are very quietly having one of the best windows of the Premier League season. They've brought in Ashley Young on a free transfer, who's a little bit over the hill now, but I think he'll add some experience to the dressing room. They've just signed Alex Twanzebe on loan from Manchester United as well in defence. So they're putting together a good sort of set there, and you know they've kind of spent 30 million each on Buendia and Bailey, and 20 million on Ings. So there's still some money there if the right person comes across, I think.
And one of the most underrated players in the Premier League, and one I really love, is Ollie Walk. Ollie
Yeah.
Watkins. I really like what he could do.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement about how Ollie Watkins will play now that Bailey and Buendia are at the club. It's going to be an interesting dynamic, isn't it? How they're going to try and fit Ollie Watkins and Danny Ings into the same side. Watkins is very much based on his pace, and Danny Ings is more of a natural finisher. So interesting to see what they do. I think we see this sometimes. You know, when Gareth Bale left Tottenham, they try and replace him with X amount of players, and it doesn't work. So you just hope that Villa have made the right moves. I think they've got a good approach there. It's just whether Dean Smith was the right guy to take that team forward.
Yep, and I'm glad you said something about United, because United's spent not just money but a lot of money finally bringing in Jadon Sancho from Borussia Dortmund. Yeah, I could have predicted that signing 3 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think about Jadon Sancho? Because obviously we know how good he is in the the Bundesliga, and we didn't really get a chance to see him as as an England fan. I was quite excited about what he would do at the European Championships, and didn't really get a run. You know, he came on and missed that penalty in the final, which was tough, but really hard to blame him when he barely had a kick all tournament.
Yeah, other than the Sweden game, I don't think Sancho saw the pitch really at all.
It was disappointing, and that's one of the things that. But then again, you had Phil Foden, you had Sterling playing incredibly well. Mason Mount is a very popular player in that team. So, really interesting to see now what England do for the World Cup next year. I'm a pessimistic England fan, so I suspect it will go wrong again. Talking to Man United, I don't really know what to think of their business. I think that they've spent money, obviously, in bringing in Sancho, and that is great. But I still think they need more. I don't think that Edison Cavani is aging. Mason Greenwood is still, developing. Marcus Rashford's had his injury problems off field. He's doing different things. So I just wonder how his focus is there. And they've kind of not brought in anything else. They've got the long running rumor of Paul Pogba leaving. Again, he's not really done what was expected of him when he came in. He looks like a completely different player in a France shirt as he does a Man United shirt. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes.
Yeah, watching Paul Pogba in the Euros, I'm like, he's the best player on the pitch. And then watching for United, and I'm like, did you put on two different boots?
Yeah, and you do wonder, don't you? You wonder whether it's a system issue. You wonder whether it's a motivational issue. Does he prefer, the pride of playing for France as opposed to Man United? Does Solskjaer get the best out of him? I think the jury's still probably out on him as a manager, despite the fact he's probably done enough at this stage to deserve a chance. But I'll tell you now, if they don't get any silverware this year, I think his reign will soon be over.
You think Raphael Varane will help coming from Real Madrid?
Yeah, I think that's obviously a very astute signing. The laziest thing that people have done is try to compare Arsenal spending 50 million on Ben White and Varane going for whatever it was, 30. But it's not comparable, right? Ben White had a massive long contract. His market value was higher. Varane is coming to the end of his career. Ben White's at the very different end of the spectrum. But, they've been after Raphael Varane for 2 or 3 windows now, just like they were with Jadon Sancho. Finally got their man over the line. I think him and Harry Maguire will make an excellent partnership. I think that there was a lot of talk about them wanting to sign Kieran Trippier. I don't know if they're still going to do that, but in Diogo Dalot and Aaron Wan-Bissaka, they've got 2 right backs already that are pretty competent. And if Diogo Dalot can do what he did at AC Milan and at the Euros, then I think he could be a really good inclusion in the team. And obviously you've got Luke Shaw at left back. So in defence and in goal, they certainly look capable of moving forward. It's just what they do in those sort of midfield areas that I think is going to be the make or break for them.
Yeah, just as we say with most teams. And now we head down the road to Liverpool, and the Reds did their transfer business early and got it out of the way, getting that big defender to partner, hopefully healthy Virgil van Dijk this year. Are the Reds back to where they were last year? Was 2021 a blip on the road, or was that maybe the beginning of Liverpool's dominance and the end of Liverpool's dominance?
Yeah, I think what they did in that title-winning season, is very much the peak. We've seen Manchester City do it over and over again in the Premier League era since they obviously got the money coming in. I don't think Liverpool are quite built to do that. As soon as Virgil van Dijk went down last season, it felt like their race was over. That could happen again. Any one player, they lose Mohamed Salah for any time. I really wouldn't rate their chances. Sadio Mane wasn't, the player he was last season. Roberto Firmino hasn't been, great. I think they do need to bring in another striker to really give them another dynamic. They've lost Gini Wijnaldum to Paris Saint-Germain on a free transfer. So did Lionel Messi, so did Donnarumma. They've done some very sharp business over there in Paris. But, it's tough. You never want to rule them out, but I think there's a little bit of a golfing quality in terms of squads between Liverpool and Manchester City.
Could Liverpool's biggest problem be that they're basically the same team they've been the last 3 or 4 years? I mean, yeah, last year with no fans in Anfield, it seemed like a much different team. I mean, how often have you seen Liverpool not win a home game in 5-6 matches?
Yeah. I mean, it's tough, and I think that there is the sort of thing that everyone's going to say they're going to bring their performances back up because the cup will be back there and the fans will be on board. But also with fans comes pressure. They performed like they did last season and were quite disappointing. They'll soon hear about it. Andrew Robertson's suffered an injury in pre-season. Trent Alexander-Arnold was very suspect last season as well. So it's going to be tough. I think you never rule them out. I think they're a top 4 side. I think it's very much City, United, Liverpool, and Chelsea in that top 4 race. But I don't have as much confidence in Liverpool as maybe I once did.
Well, now we head from the northwest to London, where the reigning European champs Chelsea might be or seem to be getting an old face back, Mr. Lukaku.
Yeah, I mean, look, the opinion on Romelu Lukaku is very much split. You'll hear one side of the people say that he's useless, he can't control the ball, he can't trap the ball, he's not going to score the goals, it's going to end like it did last time at Chelsea. And then you've got the other side of the coin. I think he was pretty much mismanaged by Jose Mourinho. I think when you look at his goal record, especially at Everton, West Brom, even in the latter stage of his Man United career, he scored goals, every season. I think he's good for 15 goals this season at least. Chelsea are going to be wanting more than that if they're paying 97.5 million for him. But that's just what it takes to get players back. It always looks bad on a club signing a player back for 60 million more than he sold him for. But they had their reasons. They sold him at the time. They got them the squad that they had at the time. They went on to win the league and obviously win 2 Champions Leagues. So I don't know. I think it's certainly a case of unfinished business there, isn't it, at Chelsea for him? Other than that, the transfer business has been relatively quiet, hasn't it, in Chelsea? I think that the best thing they've done is kind of not lost anyone of any note. All the time they've still got Kante there. All the time they've got the exciting attacking players in Mason Mount. There's so many players that have still got things to show. Christian Pulisic got to show more to show. Hakim Ziyech's got things to show. There's really still things to prove. Their fullbacks in Reece James looks very, very good. Ben Chilwell is solid, and he's got some competition behind him as well. So, yeah, I think Chelsea will be absolutely fine. I think they're going to be based on a very defensive approach. I think that's kind of what Thomas Tuchel builds his foundations on. And that's really going to serve them well. They've sold, we talk about people having really good windows, but they've made an awful lot of money this year on players that really weren't going to be in the squad. Marcus Gay, he's gone to Crystal Palace. Good signing for them, but £30 million, I think, in the bank for them. Fikayo Tomori never really made it into the Chelsea squad consistently. Another 25, 30 million in the bank. Victor Moses has gone for 5 million nearly. So, I think they've done well. I think they've really, a really astute transfer out period, which kind of paid for Lukaku, and that they're the hope he's the missing piece.
I've got a feeling Chelsea's defense might be next. I mean, you wonder if the Sevilla defender
Jules Koundé, isn't it?
Yeah. Koundé, am I saying his name right?
Yeah,
Koundé might go in. I've heard rumors of potentially 70, 80 million for him, and I think that would be an astute signing. I mean, if you asked me and said Chelsea got a center back and a striker, I'm like, I'm happy with that window.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's all they need, isn't it? The thing, when you've had the success that you've had, winning the Champions League, you must have got something right to go and win the European competition. They didn't do what they wanted to do in the Premier League, but that was based on other sort of things going wrong. That, like I said, they've sold Mark Gahey, they've sold Fikayo Tomori and brought in kind of 50, 60 million from them. That gives them a chance to go and get Jules Koundé. That replaces them. They signed Lukaku. And everything's kind of what they need it to be. So, yeah, I think that is pretty much what you need. But in terms of the other sort of Premier League transfer windows, what's the kind of thing that you're looking for? Obviously, the biggest name to come is Harry Kane, I would say. That's going to have a massive ripple effect on the Premier League. He has told the Spurs fans that he is back to training as planned. It wasn't a holdout of any kind. He's going to be playing Manchester City this weekend, if you believe the Tottenham reports and Nuno Espirito Santo. So, do you think he's going to be a Tottenham player by the end of the transfer window?
I actually don't believe so. I think as we saw in the Community Shield, even then, I was more of a glorified exhibition, if you ask me, with who was playing or not playing. I think Manchester City will add Harry Kane because they even with 9 playmakers on the pitch, he could still use a striker, and Harry Kane's the best one available. I mean, that nobody will get Haaland for 118 million with his release clause next summer. Harry Kane's available. I think City will try and get Harry Kane done in the next 3 weeks.
How do you think he'll suit their style of play? Because you watched him in the England side at the Euros. I thought he was pretty disappointing myself. I know he scored goals towards the end of the tournament, and look, he scores goals every single season, so he's got the ability. I just wonder, I think he's always benefited a lot from having, Son on his side, coming in from the left-hand side or right-hand side and putting those crosses in, and a lot of counter-attacking options. And I just wonder if, in a possession-based team, just quite how he'll figure out how to play. They've got to replace Sergio Aguero. That's the biggest gap in their side now. So Harry Kane makes an awful lot of sense. But I personally think that Manchester City could go out and get any reasonably good striker in the world, and he will score goals in that tactical offense.
But here's the thing: did Son turn Harry Kane into a great striker, or did Kane turn Son into a great winger / playmaker? Because could Harry Kane get the best out of Raheem Sterling? Could Kane get the best out of a Phil Foden? Lord knows what it'll do with Kevin De Bruyne, Jack Grealish, or anybody else in a Man City shirt.
And that's the thing, isn't it? You would expect, based on paper, you would say that Harry Kane is going to go and have his best season he's ever had because he's going to go into the best team he's ever been involved in under the best manager he's ever been managed by. So everything points to it being a successful move. I just have this inkling that it's not quite the right fit. Whether his talent will just overcome that, we won't know. I mean, if Kevin De Bruyne's going to be passing balls to him all the time, I'm sure he'll be okay. I just think that just the way they play is very, very fast, high press, creating a lot of chances in behind. And Harry Kane's not a runner. He's a guy that likes to get on the ball, fashion his own chances. And it's a very good point you make. We're going to find out if this move happens, whether it's Son making Kane better or Kane making Son better. You will find that out if this move happens, because one of the two teams is going to suffer because of this transfer. And at the moment, it looks pretty bleak reading for Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah, that's going to be the biggest question the next 3 weeks. Will Harry Kane be in London or Manchester?
Well, he's got himself a golf membership down at Wentworth in Surrey, and I'm not sure he has to pay for it, so I don't think he'll be losing out any money if he doesn't get there. But Tottenham have made some good signings. They've signed Bryan Gil from Sevilla, Christian Romero from Atalanta to play centre back, and Galini as well from Atlanta to play goals. So they've made some signings themselves, but I just, they've been disappointing for the last 3 or 4 years now, haven't they? Since they had that run where they could have won the Premier League if it wasn't for Leicester and the miracle they performed. They were fourth in 2018-19 season, sixth a year later, 7th year later. You can certainly see why Harry Kane wants to move on. I think he kind of gets frustrated with that. So it would be really interesting to see what Tottenham do this year, because they're going to have to replace him. There's been talk of the striker from Fiorentina, Vlahovic, a young striker. But we've seen before in the past when Tottenham sold Gareth Bale just how they reinvested and what happened. And I do worry.
And Lautaro Martinez, the Inter Milan striker, although it seems like Inter Milan sold everybody this summer.
Yeah, I think they've had some finances to balance, haven't they? So Lautaro hasn't happened yet. Neither has Lukaku, I suppose. But I think Lukaku is a definite to happen. It's just kind of it's just a matter of formalities. But I think Martinez is still up in the air, but he would be a good signing. It just we never know quite how it translates, do we? We've seen Sergio Aguero come over and be very, very successful. Martinez could do exactly the same. It's going to be tough. We're playing a guessing game. Anyone that kind of speaks factually about what's going to happen is a fool, if you ask me. But I certainly would say at the moment that Manchester City already look like the strongest team to repeat their success last year. And if they add Harry Kane to that, formula as well, then it's going to be quite frightening.
Don't ask me about Chelsea signing Timo Werner again. Otherwise you're sacked.
Timo Werner maybe he settles down. I think that he has the physical attributes to succeed. He's not going to play as much as if Lukaku comes in. Maybe that takes the pressure off. He's be very impactful. He's obviously got an awful lot of pace when teams tire. But yeah, it's not quite the signing we all hoped it'd be.
Unfortunately.
In terms of the other end of the Premier League table, Dylan, what do you think? Who do you expect to struggle this season? Obviously, the three teams that have come up in Watford, Norwich, and Brentford. Brentford have not been at this level for a number of years. Watford and Norwich kind of flitter between the two levels. Brentford have been very, very good in the Championship, buying players, selling them on for big money, and just keep replacing them and keep making sort of different, just filling the cogs every season. But I just wonder, they're doing a lot from the Danish league, where they're sort of undervalued players, and I just wonder if they're quite at the level to compete in the Premier League this season.
Well, the fact that Brentford's back in the Premier League for the first time in 74 years is a statement.
It is. I mean, I'm hoping they keep their mitts off Brennan Johnson, who is a very exciting player for Nottingham Forest. He is a target of theirs, and we're hoping to get him signed up for another season. But it seems hot. It's very easy to predict that they're the three sides that will just go back down again. I think Brentford have got a good foundation, but they certainly need more reinforcements. They've brought Christopher Ayer in from Celtic to play at centre-back. And they've brought another guy in from FC Midtjylland, and Frank Onyeka from the wing. But yeah, I think they need more. I really do. Norwich are starting to replace Buendia. With the signings they've made, just signed Josh Sargent, who I'm sure you're aware of, from the US men's national team, and Werder Bremen. And they signed another player, Milo Rashica, from Werder Bremen as well. So they're slowly putting the pieces together. Because last time they were in the Premier League, I think they spent about £1 million and sort of suffered greatly from that. So, yeah, I think the jury's still out on all three of those teams, but I think there's a couple of experienced teams in there that are going to struggle as well.
Yeah, I think one might be Southampton, because guess who's not scoring goals for them anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. They're trying to sign Adam Armstrong from Blackburn, who I think will be a done deal sooner rather than later. He scored 29 goals in the Championship last season, former Newcastle player. So you never know quite how they're going to make the step up from the grade. But yeah, you lose a player like Danny Ings, you lose someone like Ryan Bertrand, who's been in the team for an awful lot, who's gone to Leicester City on a free transfer. Yeah, it's tough to see what's going to happen. I would hazard a guess they're going to struggle. I think Burnley, the luck might finally run out with them. There's only so many times that Sean Dyche goes into a transfer window and makes no signings of any note to reinforce the team, that they may have to finally go down. They've lost Ben Gibson, centre-back, to Norwich City. Not a massive deal, but they've kind of put in Nathan Collins, who's a young player from Stoke, who I don't imagine will make an impact straight away. And other than that, it's kind of Wayne Hennessy and a young centre-back from Scunthorpe, and that's not what you need to do to stay in the Premier League.
Although it seems like no matter who Burnley adds or loses, Sean Dyche always keeps the Clarets pretty well out of relegation battle. I mean, even last year when Burnley went around 16 and 17, they really didn't face a whole lot of pressure.
No, I mean, he's worked wonders at that club. And the reason he'll always be the manager there until he decides to walk away is that he doesn't kick up too much of a fuss. They don't spend an awful lot of money, the owners, despite the fact they're in the Premier League. You'd think they'd want to spend more money to make sure make sure they stay there. But they obviously believe they can just keep doing what they're doing, and the ambition obviously isn't very high. I mean, they finished 10th 2 seasons ago, and they've never kind of wanted to kick on from that. And to me, that's a bit of a concern.
So ultimately, who finishes top four, and which sides unfortunately drop down?
So I think it's going to be Manchester City and Chelsea vying for the title this season, if Lukaku comes in for the Blues as expected. And I think that Liverpool and Man United will contest third and fourth spot. I think that Man U with Varane and Maguire, at the back with Luke Shaw as well, is a very solid foundations, and they've got the excitement of Jadon Sancho there. it all just depends, like we say, on that midfield area. Liverpool will do their bit. I think, all the time Jurgen Klopp's there, I think that'd be pretty exciting. Relegation-wise, I think it really is going to be Norwich. I think Watford are going to go down. And I just wonder if Brentford can do enough if they start getting some signings in. But, I think it's going to be a really tough time for the three that have come up this season.
I think you've got the right top four. I mean, be honest, City should win the league if nothing else happens. Oh yeah, and they may add Harry Kane the next few weeks. Just what they need.
Yeah, just
I,
for the struggling team to add a player to their side.
yeah, you had what, the best striker in England over the past 7 years? Oh gosh.
Yeah,
And
just add him in. Just add insult to injury for the rest of the side.
I think Chelsea will be better. I mean, if Lukaku's there, I think Chelsea will be a little more attack minded. You know, with Thomas Tuchel, he'll probably be more defense first, attack second, instead of some managers will be attack, attack, attack.
I think that's always been the formula for success for Chelsea, hasn't it? When you look at when Jose Mourinho was there, when you look at Conte, that it was always very much built on the solid foundations. And despite the fact they are all capable of playing exciting football and the talent takes over, and you've got Kai Havertz, Mason Mount, Lukaku, Werner, Pulisic. Eventually, the skill takes over, Kovacic as well. But ultimately, I think it is very much a case of keeping the ball out of the net and at your end, and then just scoring on the counter.
As we saw in Porto, just takes one goal.
Yep, they beat the team that we're putting down as certainties to win the title. They beat
Three
those
times.
Yep,
3 times.
Yeah, they've certainly got their number, haven't they? So it's that's just a masterclass from Thomas Tuchel there. But I think one team that we haven't spoken about because they don't really come in either end of the table, I don't think, is Crystal Palace. They've just signed Patrick Vieira as their manager this season. I think the jury is out on whether he's any good or not. I think he's been over in New York before, hasn't he, managing? He's been in the French league as well. If it works out, in a manager-wise, they've been very, very good in the transfer window. We just spoke about Mark Gahey from Chelsea. He was very, very impressive on loan at Swansea last season. They've bought Joachim Anderson at centre-back as well. That was on loan at Fulham. Michael Elise is a very, very exciting young player from Reading. 13.5 million is market value, and they only spent 8 million. So they've really, really had some good. But they've got Conor Gallagher on loan from Chelsea, as you'll know. So they had a lot of work to do because they lost a lot of players in a very aging squad. But it was out with all the old players, out with the old manager, and in with the new shiny things. So it'd be interesting to see how they do.
Yeah, hopefully this year Crystal Palace finds a manager who lasts, because you remember a few years ago when they brought in Frank de Boer, and that lasted an hour, and then he was gone.
Yeah, he didn't last very long, did he? I think I might have lasted longer than Frank de Boer as Crystal Palace manager. So be interesting to see. I think Patrick Vieira will be fine. I don't know that he's the long-term answer. I think that he's someone that was destined to come back to the Premier League, obviously from his playing days, and I think Crystal Palace have just been the side to do it. You could have seen him going to Arsenal, couldn't you? If Mikel Arteta gets off to a rough start, which I suspect they probably will, his job could be up soon.
Yeah, seeing Arsenal in the mid-table is just befuddling. Even the Gunners have spent a lot of money. I mean, you just wonder if it's fool's gold or if Arsenal will sort of rekindle. I mean, yeah, they won the FA Cup in 2020, but it seems like nothing's gone right for Arsenal.
There was a lot of Arsenal fans and a lot of football fans in general that berated Arsene Wenger for never really overspending, for never really pushing further for the Premier League title in the modern era. They've now gone and spent 52 million on Ben White at centre-back. He was apparently very, very impressive in the Euro squad. He was obviously very good for Brighton last year. So I think he'll be a good signing. But other than that, I mean, they brought in Nuno Tavares at left-back, which wasn't really a position of need. They had Kieran Tierney there. So I think that's one for the future. Albert Sambi Lokonga, I don't know an awful lot about from Anderlecht, but apparently he's been impressive in pre-season. But again, only a young midfielder at 21 years of age. So I think they really are seriously lacking. Their best players are certainly getting over the hill now. You've got Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, you've got Lacazette. Nicolas Pepe's never been the player that he is expected to be. So it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be a really, really tough season for them again, unless they can get some reinforcements in.
And there's always time between now and the end of the transfer market. So thanks for hopping on, Tom, and we wish Nottingham Forest well in your quest to the Premier League or Championship success. And hopefully this Premier League season is filled with lots of goals, excitement, and drama.
Yeah, I think there'll be plenty of that. And thank you very much for the well wishes on Forest. We can get all the support we can get.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dylan.